This is Twit.
Okay, so it's not enough that Bill Gates feels really bad about losing Windows Mobile to Android, but apparently now Microsoft is sneaking in suggestions into the Android share menu. Isn't that interesting? So
suggestions?
If you have...
Suggestions? What do you mean?
Suggestions. Well, I was going to say advertisements. It feels more like a suggestion. So basically, if you have a Microsoft app installed on your Android device, and let's say you want to share an image, Microsoft might suggest that you install OneDrive to upload that photo. Or maybe they ask you to open it with another one of the Microsoft blessed apps. For example, if you tried to open a PowerPoint file, it would offer to open it with the PowerPoint app to install it from the Play Store. Microsoft is also suggesting the Your Phone Companion app, the one we talked about last week. And that seems to be the biggest offender, probably because that's like the primo, get your Android hooked up to something Microsoft-y. Now, Android Q does contain changes to the share menu system that prevent these from appearing, but until then, this just feels wrong. It doesn't feel right at all.
So once you install a Microsoft app, they're injecting it into the share menu.
Yes.
When accessing any Microsoft files, like if you just opened a JPEG, would you see this as well?
I'm not 100% sure about that, but I did read
because
that
if it's like PowerPoint files or Word doc files, I'm actually fine with that. I mean, that makes sense. If you already have a Microsoft app on there and they're like, hey, use OneDrive because it'll be optimized or whatever, like that's fine. If it's recommending this for all files across the board, like it's an injection point across the entire OS, then that's shady.
I'm
scanning.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the cutoff is for this, and I feel like I agree with what you're saying, Ron. Like if it's a PowerPoint file and you tap to open it and pulls up that very familiar open with,
right.
If you happen to have a certain Microsoft app already installed, then one of your open with options is PowerPoint in parentheses install. So that would take you to the Play Store to install it, and that might actually be useful.
Right.
But if it's things outside of Microsoft's direct kind of document
like a text
universe,
file,
like a generic text file or a generic JPEG or something like that, then it feels a little abusive. Like, oh, hey, you want to share your JPEG, your picture files, you want to share it with our apps, and that feels like an overstep. What do you think, Tony?
I'm going to have to take a little bit of a step away from that. Okay. With my day job, it's a little bit too across the line. However, I will say this.
Appreciate that.
With the kind of applications that are being, as Flo noted, suggested, one of the issues I can see being is that if I share a Word document with you, and let's just say, for example, you don't have a Microsoft account, while you download PowerPoint, it would then ask you to create a Microsoft account. And that is a one-step barrier that some users might not want to go through. So it's an interesting way that Microsoft is attempting. I'm not sure if it's going to be that powerful, but there's only one way to know. I agree, though, if they start doing it with just random applications or random file types, that's where it becomes a little bit more intrusive, and that's where it's going to start looking a little bit more like 1990s kind of Microsoft. And as we were saying pre-show, they're trying to be a different kind of Microsoft and trying to be a little bit more open and things of that nature. So,
I'd like to offer a little clarification. So according to Android Police, Microsoft apps will pop up if you're opening anything like a PowerPoint, an Excel doc, or a DocX. Now, for most of us who are on Android, we're opening these things probably with Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Slides. I personally do that on Android and on Chrome OS. It also says, however, that if you are trying to share images, then it will suggest installing OneDrive if you have the Microsoft Your Phone Companion app installed. So,
it's assuming you're already, if you've got Microsoft Your Phone installed,
you use OneDrive. Yeah,
that's how you log
you're a
into your
Microsoft user. So I'm actually fine with this then. I'm fine with this.
However, now there is one implication to just kind of consider, which is, and Android Police brings this up, but it's the fact that, well, Android Q beta may not allow this sort of thing. It's just the idea of other developers catching on to this sort of thing and creating a spammy share menu. It just seems really, I want to say exploitive. I know that's a harsh word, but it just seems like a really pushy way to get people to use your product. But I could see why you would put it there. It's like, hey, don't forget, you could download this. But it reminds me so much of those third-party versions of Android, like some OEMs have, where they insert a little suggestion kind of without you prompting. It just pops up and say,
or
would
ads.
you like to install a
It also kind of depends.
Yeah.
It also depends on how far down the share menu this ad is. Like if it's all the way down at the bottom, it's unlikely that you'll even know that it's there. But if
it's alphabetical
right at the
order,
top,
right?
Well, it's alphabetical order in Android Q, which apparently Android Q has kind of cut off the ability to do this.
Right. So if it's Word, then it's all the way at the bottom.
That's true. But if it's a version prior to Q, which is, by the way, still in beta, obviously, if it's a version prior to Q, then the Android share menu is always just a weird, it's hard to really know what the order is. Yeah. It seems very random. Supposedly it's tied into how much you use something, but that never seemed to really work the way I expected it. I always shared a Pocket, and Pocket is never in the first 4, in my view. I'm like, just put that there, and 99% of the time it's the right one for me. I don't know.
According to a stray comment in the Android Police comments, which I do tend to look through sometimes, Google does the same practice in its iOS apps.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. That's important to note.
So
I think this is common, cross app, kind of manufacturer retention kind of tactics.
Hey,
I think that
this is thing.
Yeah, this is acquisition. Like I said, this makes sense. I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
I'm fine with it.
Ron is fine with it.
I mean, the thing is that the headline is Microsoft sneaking ads into Android, and it's
That's how you get page hits in this day and age.
I mean, but
it's a good headline.
There is a little bit of truth to this, right? But you aren't used to seeing it. You're used to seeing the share menu as be directly and specifically share within the apps that you have already installed. So any app that comes in there and then uses it differently than that, for me, that's notable. I can kind of understand why it might be beneficial to Microsoft users to do that. And if you have a certain Microsoft app installed, maybe you're more likely to be okay with the fact that it's there. But it is using the share menu differently than most app developers that I've seen, and that's notable.
I can see other companies like even Adobe doing something similar to that, like using their Illustrator app or Lightroom app.
Totally.
You might want to use this app.
Gladly install Adobe apps,
I mean, honestly, the example I made earlier with PDFs, use Reader. But I mean, it's they're going to take whatever. This isn't a revenue generating ad. This is an acquisition / retention tactic. This is a growth tactic, right? And you do everything you can to get people to use your apps. It's fair game. I think if there's a way, good on them for figuring out how to do it.
Yeah, but I have to push back on it a little bit, because when I take a look at all the apps on my phone and I think they've all got their intentions and the signal that sends, can you imagine opening up your share menu and having half or more of them be install this, install that? You've got Adobe in there, you've got Microsoft in there, you've got whatever, all these other things, and then it becomes really hard to find the things that you actually want to share to. That would be really sucky,
thus
too.
negating the whole point of the share menu, which is that it's supposed to curate the things
which is fair.
that
it's fair.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you pin frequently shared app?
And someone in the chat just called me out on that and said, well, I could pin it. And I feel like, even there, sometimes I feel like I've done that. And maybe it's because I switch between so many phones.
That's not a natural interface thing, though. I never knew that you could pin that.
Yeah, well, and I feel like it's one of those things at times you have been able to, and then it doesn't seem like it works, or it goes away, and then it comes back. I don't know. Yeah. Murky, as they say.
TLDR, fix the share menu, please, Google.
Thanks. Lord knows, we talked about this much longer than anybody thought we would. Only 10 minutes.